Hi there, it's been about a full year now since I started reading on my Kindle more regularly, and I have to say reading books is one of those things that will just change your life. But I quickly ran into a problem last year after reading a bunch of nonfiction books. I wasn't really remembering all the information I was learning. All of those life-changing insights were just basically coming in my brain and going out the other end very quickly. And I was getting really frustrated that I kept forgetting all the information I kept learning. Now at the time, I was really hesitant to start taking notes while reading books. And that's mainly because when I was in high school and just growing up in school, I always hated taking notes while reading books. And right now, at this time in my life, reading books was finally turning into something I actually enjoyed doing. And the last thing I wanted to do was ruin it by taking notes, like annotating or highlighting while reading my books. It was just getting too frustrating to think about even. I didn't know what to do. With that being said though, I really knew that if I wanted to take reading seriously and make it a long-term habit, I had to come up with a system that would work for me, something I enjoy doing that would not feel like work, that was not like the things I used to do back in high school. I wanted to create a system that I actually looked forward to doing, and I think I've done it. It took some trial and error, but I finally got to a point where I really feel like I'm actually learning things, not just for the short term, but I'm actually learning really valuable insights for the long term, and this system is really fun to use. Now think of this system like a pyramid. The things I'll be talking about in this video really start at the bottom foundation of the pyramid. If you can get those things right, you'll get most of your value and impact just by following those few principles. But if you want to dive deeper, you can work your way up the pyramid and get even more value, but you don't necessarily have to do that. I strongly recommend if you have a Kindle, you follow some of these basic steps. It will really make such a big difference, and it requires very little effort. Now, like I just mentioned, having a Kindle is very important. Having physical books is really great, but I think if you really want to take reading seriously, investing in a Kindle will change your life. I consider the Kindle part of this not even part of the pyramid. This is like the ground below the pyramid. If you want to build a pyramid on top, you need to have a Kindle. The features you get, like syncing across devices, third-party app integrations, very frictionless highlighting abilities built in right on the device. There's so many benefits of owning a Kindle when it comes to note-taking, digital notes. So that is the base level. This is the ground below the pyramid. This is the starting point. So once you have a Kindle, the first thing we have to do is build the foundational layer of the pyramid. And this is honestly where most of the impact will be had. If you do this by itself, you're going to get so much value. And that is simply highlighting the books that you're reading as you read them. Now look, I used to hate highlighting when I was in school. I thought it was so annoying, but on a Kindle, it's so easy. It's not like you have to carry around a pen or a highlighter or a notebook or anything like that. Literally, all you have to do on your Kindle is take your finger and drag across a sentence or two. It makes such a big difference and it requires very little effort. You just have to do this regularly. Don't forget about it while you're reading. In terms of what you should be highlighting, I am very liberal with my highlighting. Sometimes I'll highlight an entire paragraph or ends up being multiple pages across the Kindle. It's just whatever resonates with you. The main idea here is highlight all the important topics that resonate with you, that stand out to you, and get to a point where if you had to go back to the book later on, you can simply go to your highlights and get the main information through there without actually having to go back into the book itself and rereading anything. You don't have to make it super complicated. There's no need for a crazy system or anything like that. Literally just highlight anything that is important to you, that stands out to you. Whether you go back and look at it later or not, the idea is while you're doing it, just highlight the small things that really resonate with you. Now again, doing this on a Kindle is so easy. You could also do it across multiple devices, so you can start reading on your Kindle and then start highlighting on your iPad or your computer. It's very seamless. And on top of that, I would also recommend leaving small notes. On the Kindle, while you're reading, you can actually hit the note button while you're highlighting as well and leave a short sentence just writing down what you're thinking. This actually is very handy. Chances are later on, you may forget why you highlighted something. But while you're in the moment, if you highlight and leave a short note of why you highlighted that, it'll make a huge impact in terms of the value you'll get from that highlight later on. Now, this next section of the pyramid above the foundation is basically the glue that holds the whole pyramid together right in the middle. This section is called Readwise. This is actually a third-party app that integrates with the Kindle service and just takes it to the next level. It's really, really insane, all the features you get. Now, Readwise is a paid service, but I do have an affiliate link down below for an extended free trial if you're into that. It costs less than a book every single month. I think it's totally worth it. Putting that aside, let me talk about what it does and why I find it so useful. So in the foundation layer of this pyramid system, we did make some highlights and we took some notes, and that is a great starting point. But it's very rare for us to actually actively go back in time and reread highlights just for fun. I know I never do that. I never revisit old notes unless I'm researching something that's relevant to that note or whatever it might be. It's just very rare for me to go back and actively find the time to read my notes from before or read my highlights from before. With Readwise, what you're actually doing is syncing all of your Kindle highlights and taking them and putting them into the Readwise account. And what happens there is very magical. They basically send you 5 random highlights over email or via their mobile app for you to review every single day. There's actually a scientific technique that actually makes this a proven method of remembering information. It's called spaced repetition. And all it does is you take your highlights and you reread them over a spaced amount of time. And that act of just reviewing them makes them more likely to be put in your long-term memory. It's really cool how it works. I personally use the mobile app, and I love the mobile app because there's a streak feature, and I currently have almost a 60-day streak of reviewing my highlights every single day. It turns it into a game. So before, we had to actively go back into our Kindle highlights to review them. Now with Readwise, they're being sent to you over email or through the mobile app, and there's no friction involved. You are actually turning the act of reviewing your notes and your highlights into a game that you'll do just for fun every single day. Some other cool features of Readwise that I really come to enjoy is the favoriting feature. So every Sunday, they actually send you a Readwise digest of your favorite highlights. So rather than getting 5 random highlights, you'll get 5 of your favorites. And I really enjoy these because the highlights that really stand out to me, I get to review those much more regularly every single week on Sunday. And on top of that, Readwise does not only connect with your Kindle, you can actually sync it with multiple different apps like Pocket, Instapaper, Twitter. There's so many services you can link to this, and all of those highlights will be put into the central repository of Readwise. So basically, in a nutshell, what Readwise is doing is taking all the information I'm highlighting across all my different apps and books and whatever it might be. It takes them all, connects them all together into one place, and sends me 5 highlights every single day for me to review. And me reviewing these every single day is what helps me remember the information I've learned in the books or the articles, whatever it might be. Whatever I'm learning in those materials, I'm actually reviewing them every single day, and that's how I build a long-term memory of that information. But there's still one more step we can do to take this to the next level to really make sure we remember everything that we're reading. Now, this last part of the pyramid is the very, very top. You don't have to be here. Most people don't need to get to the very top. It's very advanced, and it's really simple, but it just requires a bit of extra work. And what this part of the pyramid does is within Readwise, we've talked about importing all your highlights into Readwise. The other feature they offer is actually exporting everything from across all your different sources into your note-taking app, such as Notion or Evernote. Now, I personally used Notion at first, but I've just recently switched over to Evernote. That's a topic for another day. But the reason why I love this feature so much is I'm basically creating a second brain for myself. If you follow Tiago Forte on YouTube or Twitter, you may have heard that phrase before. He really advocates for this. Basically, you're building a second brain containing all the information that you've learned, but you don't want to learn and memorize yourself. Your second brain will take care of it for you, and you can actively go in there to retrieve information as you need it. Let me give you an example. Say I'm working on a new project, and I want to go back and reference a book I read about a year ago now. And I don't remember all the notes, but I do know I highlighted it, and I took copious notes while reading it, and I know all of those notes are in Evernote because Readwise took all of my notes and put them there. So I go back in there, and this is where this third part of the pyramid starts. Instead of just reviewing all of the highlights that I took in this Evernote document, what I'll do instead is actually highlight my highlights. So I'm taking the best of the highlights, and you're making a second version of your notes. And this is what you call progressive summarization. This is more of an advanced feature from Tiago's class. I haven't taken it yet, but on his blog, he has a very detailed article walking you through this. And I find this to be very, very interesting. The way he recommends doing it is when you're going back to review a note, only when you're actually needing to use this note, so not just for fun. When you're actually going back to look at this note, what you'll do now is take highlights on your highlights. So you go back and bold the sections that are relevant to you. And after you've done that, say you're really going back into this note very, very often, the next thing you'll do is summarize it in your own words at the top of the note, maybe make a few sentences just summarizing what you've read in those highlights. And if you're really wanting to go and take the full advantage of the note here and learn as much as you can, the next step is remixing all the notes that you have in this document into your own piece of content that you publish yourself. And that is the ultimate way of making sure you remember what you read, is by making something your own from something that you read. Now, as I mentioned before, this last part of the pyramid is very advanced. I don't think most people will be needing to use this right away. For me personally, I have just started entering this phase of the pyramid. I think I am really enjoying the aspect of highlighting my highlights and hopefully one day summarizing this content and remaking it into my own work at some point in the future. That is the goal. That is the dream right there. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out my video talking about which Kindle to get. Having the Kindle that works best for you will really make highlighting and reading books more enjoyable. Link for that video on the screen right now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.